Now, as we look at verses 3 through verses 27, and then I'm going to read verse 31, um, let's just read it together first, and then I'm going to go back and break it down, okay? Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light was good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness night. And the evening passed, and morning came, making the first day. Then God said, "Let there be a space between the waters to separate the waters of the heavens from the waters of the earth." And that is what happened. God made this space to separate the waters of the earth from the waters of the heavens, and God called the space sky. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the second day. Then God said, "Let the waters beneath the sky flow together into one place, so dry ground may appear." And that is what happened. God called the dry ground land, and the waters seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land sprout with vegetation, every sort of seed-bearing plant, and trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. These seeds will then produce the kind of plants and trees from which they came." And that is what happened. The land produced vegetation, all sorts of seed-bearing plants, and trees with seed-bearing fruit. Their seeds produced plants and trees of the same kind, and God saw that it was good. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the third day. Then God said, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years. Let these lights in the sky shine down on the earth." And that is what happened. God made two great lights, the larger one to govern the day, and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set these lights in the sky to light the earth, to govern the day and night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the fourth day. Then God said, "Let the waters swarm with fish and other life. Let the skies be filled with birds of every kind." So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that scurries and swarms in the water, and every sort of bird, each producing offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply. Let the fish fill the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And evening passed, and morning came, marking the fifth day. Then God said, "Let the earth produce every sort of animal, each producing offspring of the same kind, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, and wild animals." And that is what happened. God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, and small animals, each able to produce offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground." And then we're going to skip down. Oh, I'm sorry. One more verse and then skip down. "So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Then God looked over all he had made," verse 31, "and he saw that it was very good. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the sixth day." Okay, so as we look at these verses, one of the things that I think you heard or should have heard was the repetition. There are some phrases that are throughout each day. It's almost like this was a poem or a song. Um, think about, when was this written, who wrote it, and who did they write it to? Um, so Moses was the writer of Genesis through Deuteronomy. So Moses is the writer of this, and this was written during the time when the children of Israel were wandering in the wilderness. And why was this written? Why did Moses give this account? Why did God encourage Moses and enabled him to write this, because only God could know. When we said, who was there and who wrote it down and who observed it, well, only God. God was the one who was there. So why did God encourage Moses to write this? And there may be many reasons, but probably the strongest reason would be so that the Israelites would know that their God is Creator God, that their God is Supreme God. Now, they had seen him at work. They had seen him in the 10 plagues. They had seen him at the Red Sea. They had seen what he could do. But still, when you think about it, those people had been in Egypt for over almost 400 years. So all of them were born and raised in Egypt, and all of them were exposed to the Egyptian gods. And so Moses wanted the children of Israel to know that the Egyptian gods were not gods at all. They were the created. God is the creator. So this is why it was written. Let's look at some of the repeated phrases, because there's a bunch of them. It always starts with, then God said. Then God said. Each day, then God said. Now, isn't it interesting in John 1:1, it says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. And without him, nothing was made that was made. Now, I don't know how Jesus, the living Word, I'm not sure how all that fits together, but it was almost as if God spoke it, and the Word itself was Jesus, the living Word. So each day, God said. God said. And God said, let there be. And each day there were different things that God said, let there be. And these were powerful things, and they were specific things. There was, it wasn't just a chance happening. God was specifically designing the world. And you notice the next phrase would say, and there was light, and there was this, and there was that. Perfectly fulfilled in what God spoke and what happened. And then every day it says, and God looked and saw it was good. God is a good God. Remember, Jesus, in addressing the rich young ruler, said, why do you call me good? There's none good but God. God is a good God, and his creation was good and perfect and beautiful, just like its creator, until day 6. And on day 6, when God created animals and man, or humankind, in verse 31 it says, God looked and it was very good. So human beings were even the crown of creation. And then it says, and there was evening and morning, and the first day and the second day. And so were these 24-hour periods of time? I don't know. If you notice, well, let's just look at what was created each day or each time period. Day 1 was light. And it says there was day and night, but if you notice, when we think of day and night, we think of the sun in the day and the moon at night. Well, that's not till day 3. So I don't know if that was, was it a time period or was it a very short time period? Don't know, not sure, but we know that God did it. So day 1 is light, which separated day and night. Day 2 is sky, said that separated the waters in the sky from the waters on earth. So there were clouds up here, and then apparently the earth was totally covered with water. Because day 3 says separated land from sea. So dry ground appears on day 3 and vegetation. So here's a question: can vegetation exist for long without animals? Not the way the world is today, because this ecosystem is so beautifully balanced. Animals take in oxygen and give off carbon dioxide. Plants, on the other hand, need carbon dioxide to do their photosynthesis, and then they give off oxygen. So it's you know, was it vegetation without any kind of creatures? If it's like it is today, it couldn't have been for long. So maybe it was a very quick period of time. Day 4 was the sun and the moon. So here again, the sun and the moon didn't come into existence until day 4. So what we think of as night and day didn't actually happen till day 4. And also the stars and all of the other parts of the heavenly bodies. Day 5 was fish and birds. And then day 6 was land animals and humans. Now, there is another repeated phrase, and it is repeated over and over and over and over. And that phrase is, according to their kinds. According to their kinds. I counted 10 or 11 times in just these few verses. Now, evolution would tell you that we all came from a single cell, and this single cell divided, and it became little bitty, I don't know, one-cell critters, and then those started developing, and over a period of time, they became other kinds of animals, and so scientifically speaking, if we all came from the same background, then surely there's tons of fossil evidence to that effect. Surely there's some fish frogs and some cat dogs and some cow horses, because if we all evolved from one thing, then that had to go through a process of evolving, and surely there's just tons of fossil evidence. Well, no, there's not. There's no evidence of that. Scientists call it the missing link. The missing link, because there is no evidence that one species developed into another species, even over a long period of time. Is there any current evidence of that? Is there any evidence that animals intermate and produce other animals of a different sort? No, no. When the Bible says, according to their kinds, if you look around today and if you observe and if you experiment, this is what you'll see, that the Bible is correct in this. There's been given the explanation, well, it's like the fish that live in underground caves, and they, after generations, they're born without eyes. Okay, well, they've adapted, but they're still fish. They're not lizards or frogs or something else. So fish produce fish, and people produce people, and apes produce apes. There is no evidence otherwise, and there are many, many people who have been told this so much that they believe, oh, well, that's science. Well, how is it science? Again, there's no evidence of that. One last question on this part. If evolution were correct, and if it was survival of the fittest, and if that is what is happening, then are we getting better or getting worse? Because according to evolution, we should be progressing and getting better and better as a species, maybe even developing into some kind of other better species. So I'll leave you with that question. And in the next section, we'll look at man and woman.